is Chris the Nightmare Ariola, and you're watching Mission Boxing Today on YouTube.
Heavyweight boxing fans, what's the deal? First, let me give a shout out to my man 78 Sports TV. Dropped an interesting video today. It caught my attention right off the bat, just looking at the title of it. But it was, did Mike Tyson duck George Foreman? Now, like 78 said in his video, that if you've been following Tyson or even Foreman, you've heard a lot of stories about this, especially like in 1990, 1989, around that time. So you've heard a lot of stories about this. Before I get to those stories, let me say this. For those of you that are new to my channel, or you just never heard me say this, my five personal favorite fighters of all time: Ali, Larry Holmes, George Foreman, Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield. All right, so there's no bias or I'm hating on this guy. Those are my five favorites. I've been saying that since I've been on YouTube since 2010. All right. Now we got that out the way. I'm with 78. I've heard so many stories about this. I've heard the story that was it Lou Duva, Bobby Goodman, who was a Don King matchmaker at the time, Georgie Benton. It was some lunch. I think it was before the Holyfield McDonough fight, but at that lunch, I guess Bobby Goodman said that they tried to make the Tyson Foreman fight, but Tyson didn't want to fight. And I'm sure all you guys have heard that quote that Tyson supposedly said, "I'm not fighting that fucking animal. If you love the motherfucker so much, you fight him, Don." I've heard that story, okay? So I guess it just comes down to, do you believe those stories? But to me, it's like all these people can't be lying. I mean, we're talking about guys that are associated with these camps and these boxers, and everybody can't be lying, man. Everybody can't be fucking lying. You know what I mean? Then I've heard the story that, Cuss, when he would do film study with Mike, and we know Mike is a boxing historian, man. He knows guys from the 20s and 30s. He's a boxing historian, and not just heavyweights, all the damn divisions. So he's a boxing historian. But, I heard the story that when Cuss was watching tape, and he was breaking down Frazier and Foreman and their style, he told Mike that, hey, man, your style is all, you, Frazier, guys that fight like you, Marciano, you guys' style is all wrong for George Foreman. And I truly believe, let's say but I've heard that story a few times, so let's say it's true. I believe that would make Mike feel a certain way, because Mike believed anything Cuss said. Cuss said you're going to be the baddest man on the planet, the heavyweight champion. When Mike was 14, Mike believed him. And I think Mike took Cuss' word as gold. So even though Cuss wasn't around in 1990, if Mike will remember that, man, my style was all wrong for Foreman. You know what I mean? So as far as the story goes, I've heard a lot of stories too. You know what I mean? Now, I know after Tyson lost to Douglas, I believe, after he lost to Douglas, I know Tyson fought Henry Tillman, a guy that beat him in the amateurs. And on that same card, it was Foreman versus Rodriguez. And I remember that card. That whole fight card is actually up on YouTube. Maybe I'll leave that link in the description box. But I know they're trying to get them to fight then. I know they're trying to get those guys to fight then. And I think I believe it was Ring Magazine that came out with that. Yeah, it was Ring that came out with that magazine cover where it had Tyson and Foreman. It was like a cartoon version of both of them on the front cover. Maybe I'll use that cover as my thumbnail for this video. But so they wanted to get this fight going. And then at 78, he played the David Letterman interview with Foreman. He said when he comes back, he wants to fight Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? He wasn't just coming back just to come back. He came back to fight Mike. And I know Foreman, he ripped off like 20 wins and like 19 knockouts. I know he beat Burt Cooper, Kwawi, guys who are, I'm not going to say they're Mike Tyson, but smaller, diminutive heavyweights that like to come forward and, air it out. And he beat Jerry Cooney. You know what I mean? So I'm going to say this, and I've had this discussion a lot. I'm still going to roll with what I've been saying every time I hear this discussion. 1990, I'm going with George Foreman, man. Now, some people say, oh, Mike Tyson's too fast. He has quick hands. Okay, cool. He does have fast hands. But as boxing fans, what do we always say when somebody has fast hands? Oh, timing to disrupt that. And I think George Foreman, as slow as he was at times, he had good timing. and he will fuck up your timing. If you're a guy like Frazier, Tyson want to come forward, to me, George Foreman, best way to disrupt that guy's timing is when he would just push him. Now, a lot of people say, when I say that, they say, oh, well, Mike will come over if Foreman tried to push him and his arms are extended. Mike will come over the top with a left hook or a right hook, or he'll rip down to. He probably would. But a lot of those would miss because Foreman, even though he will push you sometimes, he will push you so fucking far you will go flying. He just didn't push you a little bit. Go watch the Frazier fight. Whenever Frazier would get set to throw, Foreman pushed him. He was just pushing this dude offline. Even the fights with Holyfield, man. And I know Holyfield didn't weigh as much. You know, he wasn't a 250-pound heavyweight. But Holyfield just isn't some rag doll that you can just push around the ring. Man, go watch that fight, man. Look how Foreman was just literally using his like left forearm, just pushing Evander a few times. I'm like, damn, it's a strong ass dude, man. And look at the way that some of the other power punchers had success against Foreman. Look at the way Morrison has success. He was actually moving. Morrison didn't go in there and try to blow the house down. And Morrison had one of the best left hooks. He's up there with Tyson and Tua, at the very least, as far as the 90s version of heavyweights with left hooks. Morrison couldn't go in there and blow the house down, man. He had to move. He was landing some big shots on George, but he moved. Go look at Shannon Briggs. When he was in his prime, big, strong kid, you know, his ass was moving in that ring. Yes. Now, there are some times in these fights where these guys stood their ground with Foreman, but for the most part, they moved. That's not Mike's style. Mike isn't no fucking boxer mover. He's a come forward, blow the house down with combination, speed, aggression. We know what Mike brings to the table. All right, 1990, Mike, well, his head movement started to disappear a little bit, man. It started to disappear. The bobbing, you know, that 87, 88 Mike, it wasn't the same. And if he would have chose to fight Big George the way he fought Ruddock, he would have definitely got knocked out. I'm not saying in the first or second round, but I believe Big George would have won by knockout. And I believe those Ruddock fights took something out of Mike, man. Those were some fucking slugfest. But look at the way Moore and Holyfield fought. Although those guys, well, shit, Moore could crack, especially when he was fighting in lower weight divisions. He could crack, man. Go look at the Cooper fight. Moore could crack. So when they got in there with Big George, they were trying to make him miss and move a little bit. Wasn't nobody in there trying to blow the house down against George, and that shit wouldn't have worked. I just don't think anybody, especially a smaller heavyweight, trying to fight him like that, not gonna work. I think Tyson would have landed some good combinations on him the first round because the hand speed is crazy. But man, once George would have just felt that power, okay, that's what you got. He would have just shielded up in his little cross arm defense and pushed Mike offline. Because Mike, you gotta understand, he generates his powers from the ground up, which means his feet have to be planted. I'm not saying Mike Tyson was a plotter, but his feet have to be planted because he generates power from his legs up. You know, with those uppercuts and those hooks, he's generating power from the ground. His feet were always flat when he would let a lot of those shots go. You know what I mean? And to me, once he started to plant and then shift either right or left with, you know, shift the shoulders down and then, you know, come with the left hook and, you know, just shift your body weight over your waist and then digging for shots, man, Foreman would have been pushing his ass. Or he would have stood there and trade. We can't, you know, put it like this, man. Tyson hits Foreman with his best shot. Foreman hits Tyson with his best shot. I'm putting my money on Foreman. And some, you know, and we could say, well, the prime Mike, you know, the prime Mike, like we all agree on for the most part, his bread and butter, you know, not only was his fighting style, but just that intimidation factor, right? You're not intimidating George Foreman, especially not when he came back. You're not intimidating Big George. George, I read a book. He said he was scared shitless when he got in the ring with Frazier. Just the moment, and you gotta remember, man. I believe Foreman made. Was it I forget what fight it was, but I know it was a Frazier fight that Foreman made his pro debut on. I could be mistaken, but I believe it was a pro day. He made his pro debut on Frazier. And Foreman looked up to Frazier. You know what I mean? Like when he got in the ring, like this is the heavyweight champion of the world. This is the baddest man. Like I'm giving here, and, you know, I'm going here and giving what I got. And he ended up brutalizing Frazier. I don't know, man. I'm going to go with George Foreman on this one, especially if we talking like the 1990 let's just say they fought in 90 after Tyson lost to Douglas. I'm going with Big George. Possibility that Mike could pull out a decision because Mike, like the fight he had with my man Razor Ruddock, I believe he had enough in him back then to go the distance. But I think Foreman catches him in like round 5 or 6, man. I really do. And I think Mike may win the first 3 rounds because he's the busier active fighter. But I think George would have been placing some good hard shots in there to get Mike's respect. And that's another thing. You don't think Big George gonna give Mike Tyson respect? He gonna make him respect him, man. And George had a pretty decent jab. Not the most fast, or it was so flicking, or no, it wasn't like that. But he had a nice, powerful, stiff jab that will stand you the fuck up. And his uppercuts will definitely stand you the fuck up. This is a debate we can have for days. This is one of those matchups, man, that I wish would have taken place in the 90s. Tyson Douglas rematch was one of the fights that I wanted to see take place. Ruddock, around the time he fought Tyson versus Holyfield, was another fight I wanted to see take place. Foreman Tyson in 1990 and Foreman versus Larry Holmes. There's a lot of them. Shit, Tua Tyson. There's a few. Lennox, Bo. I mean, there's a lot of fights, but this is one of those fights that I definitely want. This would be at top of the list. Tyson versus Foreman in the 90s. Foreman versus Holmes too, even though they're both old. But I'm going with Foreman in this one, man. This is just my input on the conversation, man. But shouts out to 78 Sports TV. This is a great matchup, man. But I'm gonna go with Big George. Man. I just think that all these stories about Mike not wanting to get in there. Then I believe there was a movie scene. I could be wrong, but I believe it was one of those Tyson. Maybe it was that the movie where what's the dude that played Spawn, man? Michael Michael White, whatever that dude name is that played Spawn. He played Mike Tyson in the movie back in the 90s. Was it that movie where they had the scene where Tyson was telling King he didn't want to fight Foreman or something? Or maybe it was King's movie he had, what was it called, Made in America or Only in America back in the 90s. I forget, man, but everybody can't be lying about that. I just don't think everybody's lying. Now, some people may say, oh, but man, you know how Mike Tyson is. He gives so much respect to the old school cats. And Mike usually does. He always, never compares himself to the old school cats, man. He always gives them their proper respect. And I like that about Mike. But with this Foreman situation, I think this is more than just giving him his respect. I think that, I think Cuss started it, man. If that story is true and it holds to be true, Cuss told him that don't ever get in there with somebody like Foreman. And then when Foreman himself, the man, gets, introduced to you for a fight, I think mentally Mike would have been all wrong going into that fight with Foreman. But hey, man, it's just my opinion. This is this is a debate for ages, man. Just my opinion, though. I'm out.